Let's check it out.
Aliyah Boston was obviously listed as questionable yesterday. How did she feel through shoot around, and do you have an update on her status for tonight?
Yeah, she just did some of the shooting. She's going to be out tonight. Again with the back-to-back. And Caitlin are back-to-back. Caitlin's going to be active tonight. AB's not, and then they'll flip-flop tomorrow.
Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has presided over a catastrophic, undeniable failure to protect the most important player in women's basketball. And now the United States Congress is officially demanding accountability. Members of Congress just sent a formal letter to Engelbert after months of brutal, targeted attacks against Caitlin Clark went unpunished, unaddressed, and deliberately swept under the rug by a league that has chosen silence over safety. For an entire season, Caitlin Clark has been hip-checked, poked in the eye, struck in the throat during live games while the WNBA officiating crew and its commissioner watched in calculated, deafening silence. But that era just ended. Congress is now threatening federal investigations by the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for potential violations of federal civil rights laws. Federal civil rights laws, the most powerful legislative body in the country, just told Kathy Engelbert that her protection racket for veteran players who target rookies is officially over, and the entire balance of power in this league just shifted. Welcome back. This is Hoop Vision Daily, and today we are ripping the doors off the cover-up that the WNBA establishment has been running all season long, and documenting the exact moment the federal government stepped in to do the job the commissioner refused to do.
I don't know. I think people need to look at themselves in the mirror and realize, like, man, you got some insecurities if you sitting down and putting Caitlin Clark as the 11th best guard. Y'all need to go to a therapist and figure out what childhood issues you have. Because if you're sitting there and looking at yourself in the mirror and putting her as 11th best guard, and you're putting you as 8th best, like...
Before we get into the congressional letter that is about to blow this league wide open, I need you to understand the absolute circus that triggered this intervention in the first place. Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White just announced a player availability plan for the back-to-back games against the Los Angeles Sparks and the Phoenix Mercury that is so baffling, so idiotic, so disrespectful to paying fans that it perfectly encapsulates why Congress felt the need to get involved. Caitlin Clark, 24 years old, perfectly healthy, the biggest draw in women's sports, will play Wednesday against the Sparks but will sit out Thursday against the Mercury. Aliyah Boston, 25 years old, also healthy enough to suit up and will sit out Wednesday against the Sparks but will play Thursday against the Mercury. They are flip-flopping the availability of the two franchise cornerstones on consecutive nights for no medical reason, no competitive reason, no reason whatsoever except to deliberately sabotage the fan experience for people who bought tickets expecting to see the players they paid to watch. If Aliyah Boston is healthy enough to play basketball on Thursday, she is healthy enough to play basketball on Wednesday. If Caitlin Clark is cleared to compete on Wednesday, there is zero legitimate reason to hold her out on Thursday. This is load management taken to an absurd, insulting extreme, and it is exactly the kind of organizational incompetence that has allowed the targeting of Caitlin Clark to spiral out of control all season long. Stephanie White stood in front of reporters and delivered this news with a straight face, as if rotating your two best players on and off the bench during a playoff push is normal coaching strategy. It is not normal, it is not strategic. It is a slap in the face to every single person who has supported this franchise through years of losing, who finally has a reason to believe, who finally has stars worth watching, and the Indiana Fever front office is treating them like they do not matter. I have been covering this league for years and I am telling you right now, this is the kind of tone-deaf, arrogant decision-making that breeds the culture of impunity we are about to expose with the congressional letter. When your own coaching staff does not respect the product, when your own organization treats its stars like interchangeable parts, you create an environment where veteran players feel emboldened to target rookies with physical violence because they know the league will look the other way. And that is exactly what has been happening to Caitlin Clark all season long.
Let's check it out.
Aliyah Boston was obviously listed as questionable yesterday. How did she feel through shoot around, and do you have an update on her status for tonight?
Yeah, she just did some of the shooting. She's going to be out tonight. Again with the back-to-back. And Caitlin are back-to-back. Caitlin's going to be active tonight. AB's not, and then they'll flip-flop tomorrow.
Let me walk you through what Congress just put in writing, because every single word of this letter is a receipt, and every single sentence is an indictment of Kathy Engelbert's leadership. The letter, signed by multiple members of the United States Congress, opens with this: "We are demanding accountability from WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert after multiple attacks against Caitlin Clark, a player who is transforming women's sports and inspiring a new generation of young girls to participate in athletics. Transforming women's sports, inspiring a new generation. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the United States Congress officially recognizing what everyone watching this video already knows. Caitlin Clark is the most important player in the history of the WNBA, and the league has failed to protect her. The letter goes on to detail the specific incidents that Congress is now investigating. Hip checks, eye pokes, a strike to the throat during a live game. These are not routine basketball plays. These are deliberate, targeted acts of violence that go far beyond the normal physicality of professional sports, and the WNBA officiating crew has repeatedly refused to hold players accountable. The letter specifically names Tiffany Hayes, a veteran player who appeared to endorse violence against Caitlin Clark in a social media post, further fueling concerns about the toxic culture surrounding these incidents. Tiffany Hayes, named by Congress, in an official letter to the commissioner of a professional sports league. Let that sink in for a second. A sitting member of Congress just put a WNBA player's name in a formal document alleging she publicly supported violence against a rookie. And the league's response has been total, calculated silence. But here is where it gets even more explosive. The congressional letter states, concerning reports suggest that many of these attacks against Caitlin Clark may be racially motivated. Racially motivated. Congress is now officially investigating whether the targeting of Caitlin Clark, a white rookie who has shattered every attendance record, every ratings record, every merchandise record in league history, is being driven by racial animus from veteran players who resent her success. And the letter makes it crystal clear that if the WNBA does not take immediate action, the federal government will step in. Quote, "We support any appropriate investigation by the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If true, such conduct could constitute violations of federal civil rights laws. Federal civil rights laws, the Department of Justice, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The United States Congress just threatened to unleash the full investigative power of the federal government on the WNBA if Kathy Engelbert does not clean up the mess she has been ignoring all season long. This is not a publicity stunt. This is not political theater. This is an official notice that the league's failure to protect its brightest star has escalated to the point where elected officials believe federal intervention may be necessary to ensure workplace safety."
I don't know. I think people need to look at themselves in the mirror and realize, like, man, you got some insecurities if you sitting down and putting Caitlin Clark as the 11th best guard. Like, y'all need to go to a therapist and figure out what childhood issues you have. Because if you're sitting there and looking at yourself in the mirror and putting her as 11th best guard, and you're putting you as 8th best, like...
Now let me show you exactly what Stephanie White said when she announced this idiotic flip-flop player availability plan, because her words prove that the Indiana Fever organization is just as out of touch as the league office. Don't take my word for it. The head coach said it herself on camera. Watch this. She said it with cameras rolling, with reporters in the room, with fans waiting for an explanation. Stephanie White just told the paying public that Caitlin Clark will be active tonight, Aliyah Boston will not be active tonight, and then they will flip-flop tomorrow. Flip-flop. That is the word she used. As if the two most important players on the roster are interchangeable widgets that you can rotate in and out based on nothing more than a whim. As if the people who bought tickets to see Caitlin Clark play basketball do not deserve to actually see Caitlin Clark play basketball. As if the fans who have supported this franchise through a decade of losing do not matter. Let me say it back to you in case you missed it. The Indiana Fever head coach just announced that she is deliberately holding out healthy players on consecutive nights for no medical reason, no competitive advantage, no strategic purpose, just because she can. That is not player management. That is organizational sabotage. And it is exactly the kind of tone-deaf, arrogant decision-making that has allowed the targeting of Caitlin Clark to spiral completely out of control. When your own coaching staff does not respect the product, when your own front office treats the biggest star in league history like a part-time employee, you create a culture where veteran players feel emboldened to target her with physical violence because they know nobody in a position of authority will hold them accountable. And that is precisely what Congress is now investigating. Let me escalate this frame for you, because what we are watching here is not just one bad coaching decision or one poorly worded press conference. This is a pattern of institutional failure that has been building all season long, and it starts at the very top with Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. The congressional letter makes it explicit. The WNBA and its officiating have too often failed to address these unacceptable incidents and hold players accountable. Too often failed. That is not a one-time mistake. That is a systemic refusal to enforce the rules, a deliberate choice to look the other way when veteran players target rookies, a calculated decision to prioritize the feelings of the old guard over the safety of the league's biggest star. And let me remind you of the specific incidents that Congress is referencing, because every single one of them was caught on camera, every single one of them was reviewed by the league office, and every single one of them resulted in either no punishment or a slap on the wrist that sent a clear message to every veteran player in the league. You can target Caitlin Clark with impunity, and the commissioner will protect you. Kennedy Carter hip-checked Caitlin Clark away from the ball in a game against the Chicago Sky, a blindside hit that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with sending a message. The referees did not call a flagrant foul. The league did not issue a suspension. Kennedy Carter faced 0 consequences. Johnny Carrington poked Caitlin Clark in the eye during a game against the Connecticut Sun, a deliberate, dangerous play that could have caused permanent vision damage. The referees did not eject her. The league did not fine her. Johnny Carrington walked away laughing. And then there is the Alyssa Cunane incident where Caitlin Clark was struck in the throat during a game, a play so egregious, so obviously intentional that even casual fans watching at home could see it was not a basketball play. The league reviewed it. The league issued a statement, and the league did nothing. 3 games, 3 deliberate attacks. 3 times Caitlin Clark paid the price for being the most talented, most marketable, most important player in the league. And 3 times Kathy Engelbert chose to protect the players who targeted her instead of enforcing the rules that are supposed to keep everyone safe. That is not oversight. That is not incompetence. That is a deliberate pattern of enabling violence against a player who has single-handedly saved this league from irrelevance, and Congress just put it in writing. Now let me show you who is complicit in this cover-up, because it is not just the commissioner and it is not just the officiating crew. The entire WNBA establishment, the coaches, the front offices, the media members who cover this league, has been running interference for the old guard all season long, and the silence has been deafening. When Kennedy Carter hip-checked Caitlin Clark, how many veteran players came out and condemned it? 0. When Johnny Carrington poked her in the eye, how many coaches called it unacceptable? 0. When Alyssa Cunane struck her in the throat, how many media members demanded accountability? 0. Instead, we got excuses. We got deflections. We got think pieces about how rookies need to earn their stripes and pay their dues, as if being physically assaulted on a basketball court is some kind of rite of passage that every generational talent has to endure. And the worst part, the people who should have been protecting Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever coaching staff, the Indiana Fever front office, the Indiana Fever ownership group, stayed silent. Stephanie White did not call out the targeting. The general manager did not issue a statement. The owner did not demand a meeting with the league office. They watched their franchise player get hip-checked, eye-poked, and throat struck on national television, and they said nothing. They did nothing. They let it happen, and every single one of them is complicit in creating the hostile work environment that Congress is now investigating. You want to know why Kathy Engelbert is facing a federal investigation? Because the enablers who run this league chose protecting the feelings of jealous veterans over protecting the safety of the player who is putting millions of dollars in their pockets. That is what this is really about. That is what Congress is really investigating. Not just the physical attacks, not just the officiating failures, the entire culture of complicity that allowed it to happen in the first place. And here is the cost. Here is what Caitlin Clark has lost while the WNBA establishment sat on its hands and did nothing. She has lost games to injury. She has lost practice time to recovery. She has lost the ability to play basketball without looking over her shoulder, wondering when the next cheap shot is coming. She has lost the rookie season she deserved, the rookie season where she could focus on basketball instead of dodging elbows and absorbing hits that the referees refused to call. And she has lost the trust that the league she just saved will ever have her back when it matters. That is what Caitlin Clark's prime is being burned for, not for championships, not for legacy. For the ego protection of veteran players who cannot stand the fact that a 24-year-old rookie is more talented, more marketable, and more important to the future of this league than they will ever be. And Kathy Engelbert let it happen. Stephanie White let it happen. The entire WNBA establishment let it happen. Until Congress stepped in and said enough. But before I lay out my 5 predictions for what happens next, you need to hear what Candace Parker just said about the WNBA players who voted Caitlin Clark the 11th best guard in the league, because her words confirm everything Congress is now investigating. Don't take my word for it. One of the greatest players in WNBA history just called out the jealousy and insecurity driving the targeting. Watch this. Candace Parker just said it, on camera, in front of an audience. If you are sitting there ranking Caitlin Clark as the 11th best guard in the WNBA, you need to look in the mirror and figure out what insecurity issues you have. Insecurity issues. Those are Candace Parker's words, not mine. One of the most respected voices in women's basketball just confirmed what every single person watching this video already knows. The targeting of Caitlin Clark is not about basketball. It is not about physicality. It is not about earning your stripes. It is about jealousy. It is about insecurity. It is about veteran players who cannot handle the fact that a rookie is better than they ever were. And they are taking it out on her with cheap shots that the league refuses to punish. And Candace Parker did not stop there. She also called out the absurdity of ranking Kelsey Plum, another white player, another elite shooter, another fan favorite, as the 12th best guard. 12th. Kelsey Plum, who has been an all-star, who has won a championship, who has been one of the most consistent scorers in the league for years, is ranked 12th by her peers. Why? Because the old guard in this league has decided that if you are white, if you are marketable, if you bring in fans who do not look like the majority of the players, you do not deserve respect. You deserve to be targeted. You deserve to be ranked below players who are not as talented, not as accomplished, not as important to the future of the league. That is the culture Congress is investigating. That is the hostile work environment the Department of Justice may step in to dismantle. And Candace Parker just gave them all the evidence they need. Now let me lay out exactly what is going to happen next, because I am staking 5 predictions on the record, and I want every single person watching this video to save this timestamp and come back when these predictions come true. This is not speculation. This is not guesswork. This is pattern recognition based on months of watching this league implode under the weight of its own dysfunction. Prediction number 1. Kathy Engelbert will not survive this. If she is still the commissioner of the WNBA by the end of the 2025 season, I want every single person to come back to this video and roast me in the comments. But I am telling you right now, the federal government does not send letters threatening Department of Justice investigations unless they are prepared to follow through. And when the DOJ starts asking questions, when the EOC starts reviewing workplace safety complaints, when members of Congress start holding hearings about why the league's biggest star is being targeted with racial animus, Kathy Engelbert is going to be the scapegoat. The owners will force her out, the sponsors will demand accountability, and the establishment will sacrifice her to save themselves. Mark this video. Prediction number 2, Caitlin Clark is going to demand a trade, and the Indiana Fever are going to have no choice but to grant it. You do not flip-flop your franchise player's availability on consecutive nights unless you have already decided she is not worth building around long-term. You do not let your star get targeted with physical violence all season long without issuing a single public statement of support unless you have already checked out. And Caitlin Clark is not stupid. She sees what is happening. She knows the Fever front office does not have her back. She knows Stephanie White is more interested in load management than winning games. And when her rookie contract is up, she is going to walk, or she is going to force a trade before then. Save this clip. Prediction number 3, the WNBA is going to implement new rules targeting physical play against star players, and they are going to call it the Caitlin Clark rule, without ever admitting that is what it is. The league cannot afford another congressional investigation. They cannot afford another season of watching their biggest draw get hip-checked, eye-poked, and throat-struck on national television. So they are going to quietly change the officiating guidelines, they are going to issue new directives about protecting perimeter players, and they are going to pretend like they were planning to do it all along. Watch the next 2 weeks. Prediction number 4. Mainstream media is going to run a series of investigative reports about racial dynamics in the WNBA, and the old guard is going to lose their minds. ESPN is already sitting on interviews. The Athletic is already working on long-form pieces. And when those articles drop, when reporters start asking veteran players why they voted Caitlin Clark 11th, when they start digging into the social media posts endorsing violence, when they start documenting the pattern of targeting, the backlash is going to be brutal. And the players who spent all season claiming they were the victims are going to be exposed as the aggressors. Prediction number 5. The 2025 WNBA season ends with Caitlin Clark winning Rookie of the Year, the Indiana Fever missing the playoffs, and Stephanie White getting fired. That is the trajectory we are on right now. Caitlin Clark is too talented to be denied individual awards. The Fever are too dysfunctional to make a playoff run, and when the season ends in disappointment, ownership is going to clean house. Mark this video, come back in 6 months, tell me I was wrong. And here is the closing emotional beat, because I want every single person watching this video to remember what we are really witnessing here. Caitlin Clark is not just surviving this. She is not just enduring the targeting, the cheap shots, the organizational dysfunction, the league-wide conspiracy to diminish her greatness. She is thriving. She is putting up numbers that no rookie in WNBA history has ever posted. She is selling out arenas in cities that have not cared about women's basketball in decades. She is forcing the United States Congress to intervene on her behalf because the establishment refused to protect her. And she is doing it all while wearing a smile, while staying professional, while refusing to let the haters see her break. That is greatness. That is what generational talent looks like. And no matter how many times the old guard tries to knock her down, no matter how many times the referees look the other way, no matter how many times the front office fails her, Caitlin Clark is going to keep rising, because that is what champions do. They do not wait for permission. They do not ask for protection. They take what is theirs and they force the world to recognize it. And the WNBA establishment is about to learn that lesson the hard way. Now it is your turn. Drop your most honest take in the comments. Is Caitlin Clark the victim of a racially motivated conspiracy by jealous veterans, or is this just normal rookie hazing that every star has to endure? Pick a side, defend it, and while you are down there, save this comment. I just predicted that Kathy Engelbert will be out as commissioner by the end of 2025. If I am right, come back and tell me. If I am wrong, roast me. I will own it either way. And tag the friend who keeps telling you that Caitlin Clark needs to earn her stripes. Make them watch this video and tell you they still believe it after seeing the congressional letter. Here is what is coming next. Tomorrow we are breaking down the fallout from the congressional investigation, the response from the WNBA Players Association, and the insider reports about which veteran players are panicking behind closed doors. If you are not subscribed, you are going to miss it. Hit the bell. This is Hoop Vision Daily. We will see you in the next video.